goes to the cursed temple song. Welcome to the Dark Speak channel. Let's listen to the creepy story tonight. In a remote village nestled by the Quimon River, where the mountains and forests are still wild and mysterious, there's a newlywed couple named Ha and Tan Wan. They were childhood sweethearts. Their love grew over the years and then bore fruit in a simple but happy wedding. The whole village praised the young couple for being a perfect match and having a close relationship. Tan Wan's family lives on the edge of the village, leaning against a dark old bamboo grove, while Ha's house is not far away. As a daughter-in-law, Ha quickly won the hearts of her parents-in-law, Mr. and Mrs. Min, gentle and simple people. Especially when Ha brought the good news of her pregnancy, the whole family was overwhelmed with joy. From that day on, Tan Wan stuck by his wife's side, never leaving her side, showing off everywhere. I'm going to be a father. However, the joy was not yet complete when strange, creepy things began to happen to Tan Wan's house since Ha became pregnant. One night, Ha was in a deep sleep when she was startled awake by a steady, cold knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. The strange thing was that the gate was locked, and it was completely quiet outside. Tan Wan hurriedly ran to open the door, but there was no one. There was only the dense darkness and the sound of the wind whistling through the leaves. The next morning, Mrs. Min, with a pale face, recounted the terrifying dream she had just experienced. She dreamed of a white shadow gliding through the night, then stopping in front of an old, dilapidated temple hidden behind the garden. That white shadow kept calling Ha's name in a whispering, ghostly voice, mixed with the cold, bone-chilling sound of the wind. Mrs. Min woke up, covered in sweat, her heart pounding as if it was about to jump out of her chest. The abandoned temple in the backyard had been abandoned for a long time, covered with moss and cobwebs. The villagers rumored that hundreds of years ago, this was a place where a wronged woman hanged herself. Her spirit could not be released and kept hovering around the temple, creating a cold, gloomy atmosphere every time night fell. Mr. and Mrs. Min's family had lived here for generations, but always followed an unwritten rule. No one was allowed to approach the temple after sunset. However, since Ha became pregnant, every night, whispers could be heard from behind the temple. Sometimes it was a sound of children giggling like a teasing devil. Sometimes the sound of footsteps gliding lightly around the house, then disappearing towards a deserted temple. One stormy night, the wind howled as if tearing the night apart, and Ha fell into a sleepwalking state again. Even though the door was locked, she still walked straight out into the yard. Tan Wan discovered it and hurriedly ran after her, but was shocked to see his wife standing motionless in front of the temple, her eyes wide open, her round pregnant belly clearly visible, but her face cold and lifeless like a stone statue. He was extremely terrified, pulling his wife back while chanting Buddha's name, mumbling prayers. After Ha woke up, she didn't remember anything, only mumbling in fear. Someone kept calling me, telling me to bring the child back to them. From then on, Ha's pregnancy took an unusual turn. The doctors who came to check her pulse all shook their heads, saying there was a very strong negative energy surrounding the child. An acquaintance advised Tan Wan and his wife to invite Ba, a famous shaman on the mountain, to come and take a look. As soon as Master Ba stepped into the gate, his face turned pale. He turned to Mr. Min and said, "Your house has touched the temple's ghost. The ghost sealed in the temple is now looking for someone to take his place to escape." Master Ba set up an altar to dispel the spell, stuck a wooden sword, and burned incense everywhere. When the ceremony reached midnight, the lamp on the altar swayed violently. The window suddenly burst open, and the innocent but terrifying cry of a baby echoed from the back garden. After the ceremony, Master Ba absolutely forbade anyone to go near the temple. He also told Ha privately, "Before giving birth, you absolutely must not leave the house at dusk. There is something waiting to take her child back to replace the curse under that temple." From that day on, the whole family closed their doors, burned incense continuously around the house, and sprinkled clean salt along the path like an invisible protective wall. The day Ha went into labor, a terrible storm suddenly broke out. Thunder and lightning exploded, tearing the sky apart, and all the electricity in the house was lost. At that moment, a white figure suddenly appeared outside the window, eyes red as blood fixed on Ms. Lee's belly. The shaman immediately threw a spell at the door, shouting loudly, "Back off! The mother's life in exchange for the child's life is against the law of heaven." After a fierce spiritual struggle, the cry of birth rang out, but the baby did not cry as usual, only opened its eyes and stared at everyone. The shaman said that the spirit had been severed but had not yet dissipated, so it was still lingering around. Ms. Lee's child, that boy, had an unusually cold gaze since birth. Although healthy, at night it was always awake, giggling in the dark, its eyes turned towards the abandoned temple in the back garden. The villagers. In the midst of the pain, Anha screamed, "Tan Wan," and the midwife tried to hold her, not letting her faint from exhaustion. The villagers later recounted that every time they passed by that house at night, they would hear a creepy whisper echoing in the wind, "Give me back my child. I haven't chosen a replacement yet." After Anha became pregnant, Tan Wan suddenly became more mature and farsighted. One evening after dinner, he timidly turned to his parents, Mr. Tai and Mrs. Lone, and said, "Dad and Mom, I have something to say. I hope you can give me your opinion." Mr. Tai was sitting there rolling a cigarette and was a bit surprised to hear his son talking so seriously. He glanced at Tan Wan, then nodded. "Yes, if you have something to say it." Tan Wan glanced at his wife, Anha, who was folding the blanket on the bed, then turned back to his parents. "Yes, today I found out Anha is pregnant. I was both happy and worried. I'm thinking now my husband and I have saved some money. If my parents agree, let us build a small house on the land behind to have a stable place to raise a child in the future, and then separate for convenience." Hearing the words, "build a house," Mrs. Lone sitting next to her immediately turned around, her face darkening. "Oh my God, we've only been married for less than a year, and you're already asking to move out. You and your parents haven't even exhausted their time in the house yet, and you're already thinking about separating. The world will laugh at you." Hearing that, Anha lowered her head slightly and remained silent. It wasn't that she hated her mother-in-law, but it was true that living together for a long time had its conflicts. Many times Mrs. Lone scrutinized her speech, her cooking, and the strange noises from behind the house every night made her increasingly tense. Mr. Tai sat quietly for a moment, then slowly exhaled a puff of cigarette smoke and slowly said, "Please be quiet. What your son said is right. The land behind the house has been left abandoned for so long as a waste. And I remember the old temple behind is now in ruins. Just be careful." Mrs. Lone turned pale when she heard the word temple. "Have you forgotten? That land is the land of the underworld. That temple is not a normal temple. Every night there are groans coming from there. You plan to let your son live near that place. What if something happens?" Tan Wan then hurriedly explained, "Yes, I plan to level that place, then build a distance from the temple. I will invite the monk to come and worship properly. My wife and I have been very weak lately, and I can't sleep at night. I think it's because the place we live in doesn't suit our spirit." Mr. Tai looked at his son, feeling both proud and worried. He had heard many stories about the abandoned temple in the backyard, that in the past, a young girl had hanged herself there after being betrayed in love. The villagers rumored that she died on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, and the resentment had gathered, so no one dared to go near the temple after noon. But he also understood his son wanted to be independent. As the youngest child and the only son in the family, Tan Wan always shouldered the responsibility. Tan Wan's 3 older sisters, Kyo, Han, and Lean, had all got married and moved out long ago. Finally, Mr. Tai sighed. "Okay, if you really want to do it, then do it. But remember, before digging the foundation, you must make an offering to the temple and ask permission from the spirits there. If not, no one can bear the consequences." That night, when everyone had fallen asleep, Anha tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Looking through the window, she saw a white shadow standing at the base of a tree near the temple. Long hair covered her face. Her hands hung down, and a vague, cold whisper echoed, Don't take my land. I haven't yet passed on." Anha screamed. The whole family woke up. But when Tan Wan ran outside, there was no one there, only the smell of incense smoke lingering in the night wind. "No, That land behind the house absolutely cannot be touched, my child. Mrs. Lone's resolute voice rang out, causing the atmosphere in the house to sink. She was silent for a moment, then continued, her eyes not leaving the dark courtyard behind. This matter is hard to say, but that land is related to the ancient temple in the backyard. You can't just touch it casually. Mr. Tai sat next to him and nodded slightly, agreeing with his wife. He took a puff of his cigarette and pondered. That temple has been around since my great-grandfather's time. This land was bought back when it was still uncultivated, but that temple had been there for a long time before that. According to my grandfather, this temple is a place to send the soul of a person who died unjustly, a shrine for the dead, not a shrine to any gods. It cannot be demolished. Tan Wan then hurriedly explained, Yes, I plan to level that place, then build a distance from the temple. I will invite a monk to come and worship properly. My wife has been very weak lately. She can't sleep at night. I think it's probably because the place doesn't suit her spirit. Mr. Tai looked at his son, feeling both proud and worried. He had heard many stories about the abandoned temple in the backyard, that in the past, a young girl had hanged herself right there after being betrayed in love. The villagers rumored that she died on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, and the resentment gathered, so no one dared to approach that temple after noon. But he also understood his son wanted to be independent. As the youngest child and the only son in the family, Tan Wan always shouldered the responsibility. Tan Wan's 3 older sisters, Kyo, Han, and Lin, had all gotten married and moved out long ago. Yes, my ancestors said it existed before they bought the land. I heard it was a shrine for the wrong souls. Master Huai did not answer. He took a small piece of glass from his pocket, turned it around in his palm, and suddenly frowned. He bent down to take a map of the land, quickly drew a few lines in red ink, then said, That shrine is not a normal shrine. It is a spirit-sealing shrine, a place to seal a wrongfully dead soul, imprisoned so as not to harm others. If you touch it, destroy it without proper ritual, without a protective magic array, not only will the land be moved, but your entire family will be dragged along with it. Tan Wan's face turned pale. So, do you think it can be moved? Master Huai was silent. After a while, he nodded slightly. It can be moved, but it must be done on the night of the first day of the lunar month, at the hour of Tai, when there must be fog. At that time, the negative energy will be heavy, and the spirit will temporarily weaken. There must be a temporary substitute to guard the temple, and then the temple will be moved to another place. If there's one wrong step, then... The master looked up, his eyes red. The person who destroys the temple will be dragged down to take his place. Tan Wan's hands and feet felt cold when he heard this, but because he wanted to have his own house for his wife and children, he still nodded. Yes, please, on my family. Master Huai gathered up his belongings and said only one sentence. Go home and prepare. I will come on the night of the first day. The day of the planned temple move arrived. It was the night of the first day of the lunar month. So quiet it was terrifying, not a breath of wind. Only a thin layer of fog hung like a morning curtain. At the hour of Tai, Master Huai and a few disciples appeared at Tan Wan's house. Throughout the garden, candles flickered and incense smoked, creating a solemn yet gloomy atmosphere. Master Huai began to set up the magic formation. He drew strange symbols with chicken blood on the ground and planted a series of talismans around the dilapidated temple. His deep chanting echoed in the night, mixed with the sound of the bells, sounding eerie like a summoning from the underworld. At this moment, Ha, who had volunteered to be a substitute, was brought to the side of the magic formation. Her face was pale. Her eyes were dark from the terrifying dreams that had haunted her for the past few nights. Tan Wan held his wife's hand tightly, his heart aching but not daring to speak. When the ritual reached its climax, a cold wind suddenly blew in, carrying dry leaves flying everywhere. The flames on the candle suddenly flared up high and then went out, leaving only the faint moonlight shining through the mist. From within the temple, a mournful wail rang out, sounding as if tearing the night apart. Master Huai quickly shouted loudly, resolutely pointing at Ha. Wrong spirit. This is your substitute. Please temporarily take refuge in this body for 3 days. Wait for me to open a way for you to be liberated. A blurry figure from within the temple seemed to sway, then slowly entered Anha's body. Her body trembled violently. Her eyes suddenly opened wide, white, but they were not her eyes. Her lips moved, mumbling words of resentment that had no meaning. Tan Wan wanted to rush forward, but Master Hoai signaled to stop him. Hold her. Don't let the spirit run amok. After that, under Master Hoai's guidance, the workers began to dig around the temple. The sound of hoes and shovels hitting the dry soil and rocks. Each sound seemed to cut into the quiet space. As the temple foundation gradually emerged, a musty, fishy smell rose up. By dawn, the old temple had been successfully moved to a new location, far from the land where the house was planned to be built. Anha fainted and was taken into the house for care. For the next 3 days, she lived in a semi-conscious state, constantly having nightmares about a suffering, abandoned, and hanged girl. The whispers of resentment kept ringing in her ears. On the 3rd night, Master Hoai held a small ceremony at the new location of the temple. The chanting this time was softer, with the meaning of guidance and salvation. When the chanting ended, Anha suddenly woke up, her body feeling light as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Her eyes had returned to normal, but the tiredness was still deep. The spirit has been temporarily appeased. For the next 3 days, no one in the house is allowed to leave after sunset. On the 7th day, I will return to perform complete ceremony to appease the spirit. Master Hoai instructed before leaving. Remember, don't be careless. Tan Wan nodded, silently thanking him. He thought everything had gone smoothly, but he didn't know that the curse of the spirit temple was not so easily broken. The whisper in the night had not really disappeared. It had only moved from the temple to another place closer. Would the spirit really let go, or was this just the beginning of a new tragedy? The clear stream of water flowed into the bowl, creating a gurgling sound in the silent room. When the water was almost full, the master suddenly raised his hand to stop it. Enough! Master Hoai took the bowl of water, placed it right in the middle of his palm, brought it close to his face, closed his eyes, and slowly shook the bowl as if he was looking through the bottom layer. The air in the room seemed to thicken. A moment later, the teacher opened his eyes. His gaze was no longer as gentle as before, but became cold and serious. He looked at Tan Wan and asked slowly, "That temple, has it never been moved? Has it remained in the same position since my great-grandfather's time?" Tan Wan swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes. The temple has existed since my ancestors' generation. I only know that since my family moved in, the temple was already there. My father also said that this temple is very sacred, so the family still worships regularly. But now I'm stuck for space. If we don't move, my family will have nowhere to build." Master Hoai sat still, silent for a moment, then slowly said, "This is a temple to end the dead. It's not a normal temple." Kwong Dat was startled. "What does end the dead mean, teacher?" "It means there is a soul that is forced to stay in the temple, not to be liberated. No one worships. It is just suppressed there. Usually these types of souls die in resentment or are sacrificed to suppress the land." The master fanned his hand strongly, and the steam from the bowl immediately rose into a thin layer like mist. If it is really a spirit temple, then touching it is no different than cutting the chains of a demon disguised as a human. Once the water is muddy, the spirit will not leave. The master tilted the bowl of water and showed it to Tan Wan. Just now the well water was clear, but now the water surface was muddy, with a dark green streak, like dried blood. Tan Wan turned pale. "So, I have no other choice, teacher? If I don't move the temple, I will have no land to build on." Master Hoai pondered, then slowly said, "There is a way, but do you dare to make a trade-off?" "What do you mean by trade-off?" "There must be someone to temporarily replace the spirit for 3 days, to move the temple to a new location, then lead the Yin-Yang ceremony, inviting the spirit to the new place. The substitute will have to endure all the dreams, feelings, and shadows that the spirit has ever had. If he can overcome it, the spirit will leave. If not, that person will be dragged down. Tan Juan clenched his fists, his voice lowered. I accept. Just ask you to show me the way. Returning home, Tan Juan told his family the whole story. He did not hide any details about needing a substitute. Mr. Fook, Tan Juan's father-in-law, nodded in satisfaction after listening. Master Hawaii is famous in this area. I heard that in the past, he was able to exorcise a spirit in the Doi hamlet. He must be very skilled. With his magic spell, you don't have to worry about anything, my child. The whole family ate and drank happily, but only Ha sat there, deep in thought, her face full of anxiety. It wasn't because she wasn't happy, but because she always felt an indescribable coldness in her heart. In particular, since the day she moved here, every night she dreamed of a woman wearing a white dress, her face covered by hair, standing silently by the window of the house across the street, near the old temple. She didn't dare tell anyone, afraid of being thought to be imagining things. But now that she heard that the temple would be moved, her fear grew even greater. That night, when the whole family had fallen asleep, Aha woke up in the middle of the night because she heard the sound of fingernails lightly scratching the glass door. The sound was steady and prolonged. Knock, knock, knock. She sat up, her hands clutching her stomach, her mouth dry. Looking to the side, Tan Juan was still sleeping soundly, not seeming to have heard anything. The bedroom glass door was slightly open, and through that gap, Ha saw a white, skinny, cracked hand lightly scratching the edge of the glass, leaving red streaks like dry blood. She was startled and burst into tears, covering her face and screaming, "Who is there? Who is standing there?" The sound immediately disappeared. Tan Juan suddenly sat up, panicked, and asked his wife what was wrong. Ha didn't say anything, just hugged her husband tightly and cried silently. The next morning, not letting his wife worry for a second longer, Tan Juan decided to immediately start moving the temple. He believed that only when the temple was moved, these hauntings would leave his family alone. Little did he know that this hasty decision would lead to days of horror beyond anything he had ever imagined. Will moving the temple really bring peace, or just open the door to a new, never-ending nightmare? Well, it seems like we are confusing the character names and the plot. I will focus on creating a completely new plot 80% from the part you provided, ensuring more coherence and horror, and using the character names that were agreed upon from the beginning. Tan Juan and Ha. Tehoi, Quang Dat, Mr. Tai, Mrs. Lone, Mr. Fook. I will continue from the moment Tan Juan prepares to move the temple, Ghost Temple of Dakuk. According to Master Hawaii's instructions, Tan Juan prepared a brand new incense bowl, some pure ash from a 1,000-year-old banyan tree, and 2 carefully sealed talismans. He and Quang Dat rolled up their sleeves, began digging the ground, and built a new temple at the end of the garden, about 30 meters away from the old temple. On the foundation of the new temple, Tan Juan carefully buried one of the 2 talismans. The remaining talisman was placed right inside the new incense bowl. Everything was done exactly according to Master Hawaii's instructions. No flowers, no elaborate worship, just the right time and the right ritual to move it. Scream from the bottom of the underworld. The moment Tan Juan bent down, his trembling hands lifted the old incense bowl to move it to the new temple. A cold wind blew from somewhere. The whole sky, which was bright and sunny, suddenly turned gloomy, and dark clouds covered the entire garden, like a giant mourning curtain. At that moment, from Tan Juan's pocket, the remaining talisman suddenly fell to ground, burning fiercely as if being burned alive by an invisible fire. A pungent, disgusting smell rushed into his nose. Tan Juan did not have time to react, fell to the ground, unconscious. At the same time, inside the house, Ha was standing by the window. Suddenly a cold air rushed straight at her. The closed window suddenly flew open, hitting the wall hard, causing the glass to shatter into pieces. A strong smell of blood rose up, making her feel extremely nauseous. Ha held her stomach, her face pale, then collapsed to the floor. Fresh blood began to ooze from inside. At the location of the old temple, a sudden wailing sound rang out from inside. It sounded like the sound of a soul being imprisoned and unwilling to leave. Quang Dat looked at Tan Juan, who was unconscious in fear, then looked back towards the temple. "Hey, Did you hear someone crying? Tong Wan's hand was still tightly gripping the old incense bowl. Sweat was dripping down his forehead. He muttered unconsciously, "No, there's no one. It's just my imagination." As soon as he finished speaking, from the temple's cavity, a charred, blackened woman's hand suddenly reached out, dry and full claws, tightly grabbing Tong Wan's ankle. He screamed in horror. Ah! Kwong Dat turned pale, rushed to pull Tong Wan out, but that hand was terrifyingly strong, pulling Tong Wan towards the temple. The wind howled fiercely, leaves flew and swirled throughout the garden like a ghostly tornado. From inside the temple, screams echoed. "Give it back to me. You dare to destroy my temple. Give it back." After the black storm, everything after that day became chaotic. Anha lost a lot of blood and had to be rushed to the emergency room immediately. The doctor said she had a severe miscarriage and was at risk of miscarriage if not carefully taken care of. The strange thing was that there were no external injuries, only blood flowing, as if it was continuously seeping from inside her body. As for Tong Wan, from the moment he woke up from that fainting spell until now, he has been sitting in a corner of the house, his mouth constantly mumbling meaningless words. "Don't drag me. Don't make me follow you to the temple. I beg you. Please spare me." His eyes were always fixed on the window, where a white shadow stood motionless every night, waiting. Mr. Fook, Tong Wan's father-in-law, listened to everything and was silent for a moment. He poured more wine into the cup, then looked straight at Tong Wan and said slowly, "Whether it succeeds or not depends on your heart. No matter how skilled Master Hawai is, how profound his magic is, it is only a part. The main thing is sincerity. Moving the temple is not a small matter. A place of worship, even a small temple, is a sacred place. Master Hawai is really skilled. But if our family moves a temple without even a stick of incense to ask for permission, I feel extremely guilty. Is Mr. Fook's guilt an omen of upcoming disasters? And who is that white shadow, or what is it that is stalking Tong Wan's family?" Tong Wan paused when he heard Mr. Fook speak. After a while, he scratched his head, his voice hesitant. "Yes, I understand what you mean. But think about it. Master Hawai said that there is magic in the talisman, and he is a specialist in doing these underworld things. If I perform another ceremony, I might violate taboos, which would be even more troublesome." Mr. Fook frowned, seemingly not completely agreeing. But then he did not say anything more, just looked at Mrs. Lone sitting next to him and said, "What do you think? What is your opinion?" Mrs. Lone took a sip of tea, her voice firm. "I don't dare say anything more, sir. Let them take care of their business. But I'm telling the truth. That temple is sacred land. Whoever touches it must be careful. All kinds of magic are done by humans. And how can humans get past the gods? Think about it. For so many years, the temple has been there peacefully. Has any family ever dared to touch it? Now that they're moving, I just hope nothing happens." The atmosphere in the house suddenly became heavy with an invisible worry. Tong Wan felt a little guilty when he heard that, but thinking about the house that was under construction, and Ha who was pregnant, with a baby about to be born, and still not having a proper place to live, he forced a smile and said, "Yes, I accept your teachings. I promise to do everything very carefully. Tomorrow I will call the workers to build the new temple first. Then the next day I will move the incense bowl as instructed by Master Hawai." Kwong, that sitting next to him, also added, "Yes, I think Tong Wan's calculation is reasonable. Once the new temple is built, move it right away, so as not to let it wait too long and dilute the negative energy. Besides, Master Hawai has already given him a spell, so everything must have been calculated." Mr. Fook sighed, put his wine cup on the table, and said, "Well, it's up to you guys. I just hope everything goes smoothly." At that moment, from the yard came the sound of a cat meowing hoarsely. A long, eerie meow sounded in the sultry afternoon, like someone was crying sadly. Everyone in the house looked at each other, their eyes filled with worry, but no one dared to say it out loud. That evening, after dinner, Tong Wan opened the cupboard, took out the 2 talismans that Master Hawai had given him, and placed them on the ancestral altar. He lit an incense stick, clasped his hands in prayer, and muttered a few sentences. Please bear witness. I am Tanwan. Because Nha is pregnant and the house is not stable, I would like to move the temple to another location. I have asked the master to cast a spell on this talisman. I dare not be negligent. I hope the hidden ancestors in the temple will have mercy and forgive me, so that my family can be safe and my children and grandchildren can be healthy. The incense stick had just been lit when, strangely, a cold wind suddenly blew through the house, shaking the windows. The cold did not come from outside, but seemed to creep in from deep inside the house, making everyone shiver. No one said anything, but in their hearts, everyone quietly felt that something was about to happen. A cold, invisible omen was enveloping the space. That evening, Tan Wan's family gathered together in a cozy atmosphere, trying to dispel the anxiety that had just begun to grow. Although the sky outside had just begun to cast dark clouds threatening rain, the house was still filled with laughter and chatter, as if to reassure themselves. But everyone's eyes were filled with worry, occasionally glancing toward the backyard, where the old temple was immersed in thick darkness, awaiting a new fate. Were Master Hawaii's amulets powerful enough to ward off disaster, or was Tan Wan's prayer just an invitation for a more terrifying entity to come to his family? When the dinner was just finished, Mr. Tai, Tan Wan's father, suddenly stood up and went into the inner room. A moment later, he came out, holding an old brown cloth bag, inside which he heard a rustling sound as if there was something heavy. He gently placed the bag on the table, his voice low but resolute. This is a little savings my wife and I have made over the past few decades. Now that you and your wife are planning to build a new house, take it and manage it. Don't owe anyone anything. Your mother and I are old. We don't need this money anymore. Tan Wan was a little surprised, quickly waved his hand, and refused. No, I don't dare accept it. The gold belongs to my parents. If we get sick or need in the future, my wife and I will try our best. We don't dare touch my parents' savings. Hearing that, Mrs. Lone, Tan Wan's mother, clicked her tongue. You're being stubborn. Building a house is a lifelong matter. Who doesn't rely on their parents? We're still healthy, and we're happy to see our children living in peace. If anything happens in the future, God will be merciful, and I probably won't need that much money. Seeing that his wife had spoken, Mr. Tai just quietly pushed the bag of gold towards his son. And Tan Wan's wife, had been silent from the beginning, but now she spoke softly. You take it, then I'll take it to the shop to exchange for cash to pay for the workers. Waiting to borrow from outside will not only lose my reputation, but also make me feel uneasy. Tan Wan looked at his parents, then at his wife, his eyes filled with gratitude and emotion. He nodded, then took the bag of gold, his hand shaking slightly, not because of material things, but because of deep family affection. Yes, I thank you, Mom and Dad. I promise to build a decent house, so that my parents can be proud of their neighbors. Everyone sat down again, continuing their meal amidst the chirping of insects in the yard. On the old tiled roof, moonlight filtered through the gaps in the clouds, illuminating the mossy brickyard. The countryside atmosphere that night was strangely peaceful, as if the gloom that had just passed through the afternoon had never been there. The faceless moon. That night, the north wind blew through the cracks in the door, making the room of Tai and Lone's couple colder than usual. The two had fallen asleep for a while, when suddenly, in the backyard of Mr. Ann's house, Mr. Tai's father, the yellow dog that was guarding the door, suddenly jumped up. It raised its ears, growled in its throat, and howled persistently, sounding terrifying to the bone. No one reacted. Only the cold moonlight covered the mossy roof, casting a long shadow of a white-haired woman standing motionless in the middle of the yard. That person leaned on a rotten bamboo stick hollow. Each step made a creepy knocking sound. That figure was none other than Mr. Tai's grandmother, who had passed away more than 2 years ago, famous for being the keeper of the incense of the old temple. The door of Mr. Tai's room shook slightly, creaking. Then from the darkness of the hallway, the old woman's figure appeared, standing in front of the door. Her wrinkled, haggard face reflected extreme worry and sadness. Mr. Tai suddenly woke up, sweat pouring down his forehead when he saw her standing silently by the window, her lifeless eyes staring straight at him, unblinking. Was the appearance of the old woman's soul a warning, or just the beginning of a series of even more terrifying events? Grandma? Why, Grandma's back! Mr. Tai whispered, his voice trembling. The old lady said nothing. Her sunken eyes stared at him. Then she shook her head slowly as if she wanted to tell him something. Mr. Tai sat up, walked closer to the window, his voice full of worry. What do you want to say, Grandma? Is there something wrong? The old lady nodded slightly, opened her mouth to speak. Then a strange cold wind suddenly blew. Right behind her, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared from the thick darkness. A black, long, dry hand like a dry tree branch reached out from behind her, grabbed her neck tightly, and pulled her into the pitch-black night, disappearing as if it had never appeared. Mr. Tai screamed unconsciously and then woke up again, his whole body drenched in cold sweat. He looked around in panic, his hands trembling. Mrs. Lone, his wife, woke up, frowned, and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you screaming like that?" Mr. Tai breathed heavily, gently wiped his forehead, and changed the subject. "It's okay. I just dreamed my grandmother came back. It must have been because I've been thinking about the temple construction for the past few days." Mrs. Lone pulled the blanket over her, nodded slightly, but her eyes were still sleepy. Mr. Tai lay down, his arms around his wife, his eyes still looking out the window, where the old lady's figure had just appeared. A feeling of unease weighed heavily on his heart. He knew it was not just a dream. Signs from the underworld. 3 days later, the backyard of Mr. An's house had been cleared. The wild trees had been cut down, revealing an empty space. Tan Wan stood with 2 workers examining the terrain. He pointed to the left corner of the land, near the banana row and the old dry well. "I plan to build a small temple there, facing south. Is that reasonable?" The oldest worker, Uncle Tam Dung, frowned and turned to Tan Wan. "Have you gone to see a master yet? About the direction of the temple?" "No. I think it's simple. This land has not been used for a long time, so it should be fine to do it here." Uncle Tam Dung frowned and lowered his voice. "It's not that simple, my friend. A temple is a place of worship. It has spiritual energy. If you put it in the wrong place, you'll invite disaster. I've been in this profession for 30 years, and I've witnessed many things. Even though they were built, they couldn't live in peace. People were lost, and families were ruined." Tan Wan was startled when he heard this, and remembered the terrifying dream about his grandmother. Her face appeared in his mind like a cold omen. He nodded slightly. Then, "If you know someone who can see it, please introduce someone to me. I don't want to do something I shouldn't do." Uncle Tam Dung looked at him for a moment, then spoke softly, as if afraid someone would hear. "Tomorrow I'll take you to see Mr. Baytam. He's not an ordinary person. Some people say he's half human, half ghost, but when it comes to land, spirits, no one has dared to disobey him. Most of his predictions have come true in a strange way. Will the meeting with Mr. Baytam bring answers to the hauntings that are haunting Tan Wan's family, or just open up other terrifying secrets?" Tan Wan shuddered slightly. Moving a small temple is no longer as simple as he thought. He turned back to look at the old temple waiting to be moved. The incense bowl inside had a long, terrifying crack, and even more horrifying, a streak of thick black blood was oozing from underneath the brick floor, spreading like an open wound on the ground. Kwong that stood frozen before that terrifying scene. His eyes were wide open, his lips trembling, unable to utter a word. Inside the temple, incense ashes were flying everywhere, curling into thick smoke rings as if some invisible breath was blowing strongly from below, forming strange, terrifying shapes. A sudden gust of wind blew past, hitting him straight on the body, cold to the bone as if coming from the underworld. The whisper of the ghost. Anha ran out of the house, holding her pregnant belly, her face pale with extreme fear. Inside the house, the chicken offering suddenly had its head bitten off, and its blood splattered straight onto the ancestral altar, spreading like a curse. Tan Wan had not yet reacted to his wife's horrifying words when someone's moaning sounded his ears, very softly, as if coming from deep underground. Each word, cold to the bone. "Give me back my life." He turned abruptly toward the temple, but saw no trace of anyone. There was only a thick, opaque incense smoke, like diluted ink, lingering around, creating a dark curtain, obscuring everything. He took a step back, muttering in panic. No, it can't be. Master Hoai said this place had been cursed, right? Right then, a crack resounded from the temple floor, like the sound of bones being broken. A brand new crack had just appeared, running from the edge of the brick straight to the middle of the temple, wide open like a mouth swallowing everything. Under the muddy ground, something like a human hand, dry and covered in mud, was reaching out from the crack, scratching the brick bit by bit, creating creepy sounds that made my hair stand on end. Tan Juan screamed in horror, stepped back, almost tripping over himself in fear. Mr. Tai ran out of the house, saw his son's face pale, trembling like a leaf. What's going on, Tan Juan? He pointed at the temple, his voice stuttering. Dad, look, the hand is sticking out. But when Mr. Tai looked back, that hand had disappeared. The brick floor returned to its original state, leaving only the incense ashes flying in the wind. Mr. Tai spoke sternly and ordered firmly. There is something wrong here. Bring the incense bowl into the house immediately. Close the door tightly. Don't let anyone come near here. That night, in the small house with yin-yang tiled roof, the oil lamp flickered all night long. No one dared to turn it off. And Ha couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, her hand on her stomach as if instinctively shielding and protecting the innocent child in her womb. Tan Juan was restless, his eyes red from lack of sleep, his hand tightly holding the remaining amulet as if holding on to the last fragile hope. Around midnight, from the backyard came the sound of digging, clanking, as if someone was using a hoe, using a shovel, digging frantically under the temple foundation that had been moved. And tonight, who else was doing what out there? Could it be? Tan Juan stepped out onto the porch, his ears perking up to listen. The sound of the hoe was still steady, but there was no sign of anyone. The dog did not bark. The tree did not shake. The sky did not wind. A terrifying silence enveloped the space. Only the sound of digging echoed from a void. He was about to turn back when boom. A loud, earth-shattering noise rang out from the direction of the relocated temple. The brick floor there collapsed into a round, black hole as deep as a gaping pit of hell. From below, a foul stench rushed up, as strong as the smell of blood left for a long time, making his stomach cramp with nausea. And then a human face, ashen, slowly emerged from the mouth of the hole. Its black, empty eyes stared at him, unblinking, filled with resentment and anger. Next chapter, the soul-swallowing pit. What is awakening? When everyone had gone home, only Tan Juan was left in the house, sleeping soundly on the sofa, the smell of alcohol still lingering in the corners of his eyes. The lights in Ha's bedroom had been turned off, leaving only a dim yellow light from a small bulb in the corner of the wall, enough to clearly see the faint outlines of the room. The wind blew in from the crack in the window, gently swaying the thin curtains. But in the silence of the night, something seemed wrong. The gecko made a thump-thump sound and stopped. The whole space suddenly became strangely quiet. Then suddenly, from somewhere in the house, there was a thump-thump sound like someone's footsteps were walking around a hallway, getting closer and closer. In his fitful sleep, Tan Juan gently turned over. Cold sweat suddenly appeared on his temples, even though it wasn't hot tonight. Can Tan Juan escape the terrible curse from the ancient temple, or will he and his family be trapped in the vortex of obsession forever? Tan Juan fell into a nightmare. In his dream, he saw himself standing in the middle of the land where the new temple was being built, where the new temple had just been moved. The brand new temple stood tall in front of him, but the surroundings were pitch black, without a single star. Then from behind him, a mournful groan rang out, like the cry of someone imprisoned forever. He turned around abruptly. A woman with long hair, a face covered in blood, and two hands bruised as if she'd been dead for a long time was standing right behind him. Her white eyes were wide open, staring at him, unblinking. Blood from her chest dripped down, dripping onto ground, forming bright red pools. Tan Juan screamed in his dream, a terrifying scream that tore through the night. In reality, that scream came out as a real sound. He sat up with a start, his body covered in cold sweat, his breathing labored. Looking around the room, there was still only the faint yellow light from the corner of the wall, the wind blowing gently through the crack in the door. There was no one. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying to calm down. I must have drunk too much alcohol. So I had a bad dream, he muttered, then lay back down, pulled the blanket over himself, trying to dispel the horrifying image that had just appeared. But at that moment, tock, tap, a light knock sounded from the window on the side of the room. Tom Luan opened his eyes wide. His heart was beating rapidly, each beat pounding as if it wanted to jump out of his chest. The knock sounded again, steady, unhurried, as if someone was patiently waiting for him to open it. Tock, tap, tap. Tom Luan took a step back, his trembling hands gripping the edge of the sofa. The dim light from the lamp shone out, and he clearly saw on the ground outside the window someone's footprints covered in wet mud, leading straight to the newly built temple, a dark, mysterious path. The last night in the yard, Mrs. Lone swallowed hard, her hand unconsciously reaching into her pocket, hoping to find a rosary or small amulet that she usually carried with her to reassure herself. But tonight, for some reason, she forgot to bring it. Her feet retreated step by step, the soles of her feet almost numb with fear. Her eyes were still glued to the black shadow that was looming out from the small alley at the end of the yard, where the darkness was thickest. Those two glowing red eyes were still staring at her, as if wanting to swallow her soul through their gaze. Then it let out a loud laugh. Not loud, but enough to make her spine shiver, feeling like thousands of ants were crawling under her skin. That temple is mine. That voice did not seem to come from a human mouth, but echoed straight into Mrs. Lone's mind, cold, hissing each word like the wind whistling through the bamboo grove at night, carrying with it extreme resentment. Her throat choked. She wanted to scream, but her mouth could not open. Her feet felt like they were nailed to the cold ground. Suddenly, the black dog rushed back from the empty space. It stood in front of Mrs. Lone, growling, its fur standing on end, its bright eyes staring straight into nothingness. It growled as if it was confronting something she could not see clearly, a brave protection. The black shadow paused for a moment, then disappeared into nothingness as if it had never existed. Only the strong wind blowing through a banana grove behind the house made a creepy rustling sound, like a reminder of the terrifying presence that had just passed. Mrs. Lone collapsed, her hands trembling, clinging to the dog's neck and gasping for breath. A moment later, when her breathing had stabilized somewhat, she stammered, "Muck, you saved me." She staggered to her feet, hugged the dog, and quickly crawled into the house, slammed the door shut, and locked it carefully. Her heart was filled with anxiety, and that feeling became even heavier when she turned around and saw a pair of tiny muddy footprints, imprinted with each step on the brick floor of the porch, from the backyard straight to the front door. But outside in Haya's bedroom window, those red eyes were still there. They did not disappear in Haya's dream, even though she was awake, and I still saw them flickering behind the misty glass, like a pair of demonic headlights. And Haya's hand tightly gripped Tom Luan's shirt, her mouth stammering, "On Luan, out there's someone, not a person." Tom Luan frowned, turned back to look at the window, but saw only a dark color. He pulled the blanket over his wife, trying to reassure her. "You must have had a nightmare. I'll check it out tomorrow morning." Will Tom Luan find the truth behind these strange phenomena, or will he and his family have to face a force beyond their understanding? "Time to rest, it's late," Tom Luan whispered, his voice still tinged with worry. And Ha didn't dare say anything more, just lay close to him, eyes still looking out the window until her eyelids grew heavy, falling into a fitful sleep. Outside, the wind was still blowing, carried with a pungent smell like burnt flesh, a scent that didn't belong to this world. Under the eave of the house, the squid was still growling continuously, its feet scratching the cement floor, creating a strange screeching sound, as if warning of an invisible danger. The night signal. The next morning, Mr. Fuchs' family woke up earlier than usual to prepare to bring offerings to the temple to pray for a good day. Since the temple was built, everyone had a cold feeling behind their backs every time they passed by it, an indescribable feeling of unease, but no one dared to say it out loud. afraid of bad luck. Mrs. Lone woke up with a tired, exhausted face, her eyes sunken as if she had been awake all night long. As soon as she saw Nha, she asked immediately, her voice full of worry, "Did you hear anything strange last night?" Nha hesitated, intending to recount the strange dream and the mysterious hand scratching at the door, but then stopped. She looked out into the yard, where there were dog footprints and a few small, patchy mud stains, looking like a child's footprints, tiny and strange, imprinted on the wet brick floor. "No, Mom. I must have been tired these past few days and haven't slept well." She tried to reassure her mother and herself. Mrs. Lone nodded, but a bad feeling arose in her heart, an uneasiness that could not be dispelled. She secretly took out from her pocket an old, yellowed amulet, then quietly stuck on the back door of the house, which led to the garden, hoping it would ward off evil spirits. The horrifying truth: in the land behind the house, where the small shrine was located, Tong Wan and Mr. Fook were preparing incense, flowers, and fruits for the offering. But when they arrived where both of them stopped, their eyes wide open in horror. The wooden coffin lid under the temple pedestal, where people poured cement to fix the coffin, was blown off, thrown to one side. The soil underneath was dug up and ruined, as if someone had tried to dig something out since last night, frantically. In the middle of the festering ground was an old, scorched shirt covered in dried blood and a clump of long hair stuck to the dirt, looking extremely horrifying. The strong smell of blood and decay rose up, causing Mr. Fook to cover his nose with his hand, trying to suppress the nausea. Tong Wan took a step back, his face pale, his eyes wide open. What is this, Dad? Who dares to dig this place up?" No one answered. Only the early morning wind blew by, making the wind chime hanging in front of the temple ring. The sound was strangely chilling, like someone's wailing. The moon outside the porch was now hidden by dark clouds. The whole house was plunged into silent darkness. Only the sound of the wind blowing through the erica trees behind the house creaked like a person's groaning, lamenting. That night, no one in the house slept well. The black dog sometimes howled long, terrifying sounds, sometimes growled as if it was sniffing out something terrible. Occasionally, it would even dart out to the back garden, where there was a small temple hidden in the bamboo grove, barking into the darkness. Around the fourth watch, when everything was half asleep, half awake, a clattering sound suddenly came from the kitchen. It sounded like someone was rummaging through pots and pans, trying to find something. Then came the sound of water flowing under the bridge in the pond behind the house, resounding unusually, drop by drop, steady and chilling, like the tears of a suffering soul. The next morning, Mrs. Lone woke up to see the squid lying on the porch panting. Its eyes were bloodshot. Its two front legs were scratched and bleeding, as if it had just fought with something invisible but extremely fierce, protecting its owner from imminent danger. Were these terrifying signs of revenge of the ghosts in the temple, or was there some dark force manipulating everything? "Where have you been all night?" Mrs. Lone mumbled and bent down to pet the squid. But the squid did not wag its tail happily like usual, but only folded its ears, whimpered miserably. Its red eyes looked straight out to the back garden with extreme fear, as if it had just escaped something terrifying. Mrs. Lone began to feel extremely uneasy. Just as she went downstairs to boil water, she stopped. The kitchen door was ajar. On the wooden table there was a handprint in black ash, clearly as if someone had just touched it with a scorched hand, hauntingly creepy. Hearing Mrs. Lone scream, Mr. Fook and Tong Wan quickly stood up and ran to the back garden. Nha also hurriedly walked out, her hand still holding her wobbly pregnant belly, her face pale with worry. Under the erica tree behind the temple, the squid dog lay curled up. Its eyes were wide open as if it had encountered something terrible. Its tongue was hanging out. Its teeth were stuck deep into its lower lip seemed to be biting tightly in extreme fear. But what haunted everyone the most were the cuts on the animal's body, long, deep, and streaked with dried blood, as if human fingernails had torn the flesh into pieces, exposing the bones. Tong Wan knelt down, his hands trembling as he touched the body of the beloved dog that had been with the family for so many years. Impossible! Last night it was guarding the door. Why now? His voice choked. Tears began to flow. Mrs. Lone covered her mouth and sobbed. The black dog had lived with this house for nearly 10 years, was wise and loyal, and at night it even lay outside on the porch to watch over Ha while she slept. And now, it had died horribly, its body deformed. Immediately after, a strange wind blew in, a foul stench like burnt flesh, mixed with the musty smell of soil. Under the base of the temple, the soil showed signs of being turned upside down, as if someone had just dug something up in the middle of the night, madly and violently. Mr. Fook looked at the scratched ground, speechless. He turned around and spoke softly, his voice trembling, full of confusion. That place is where the ashes of the child who was burned in the fire that year were buried. The child was trapped in the temple during the fire. No one could save him. That sentence was like a lightning bolt that struck everyone's hearts, making everyone tremble. Tan Juan looked at him in astonishment. What you mean is someone dug it up? No one answered. Only Mrs. Lone's eyes began to well up with tears. Her trembling hand pointed towards the base of the temple. I saw footprints, human footprints, but bare feet covered in blood. The master's warning. In addition to prepared offerings, Tan Juan also carefully placed a petition asking for permission from the local god to demolish the old temple and build a new foundation. Master Hoai, who had changed the name of Master Hung in the previous part, carefully checked everything again, then told Tan Juan, "The fire is on, the incense is ready. When the monk finishes praying, burn the petition immediately, don't hesitate." Tan Juan did as he was told, burning the incense while looking around the land behind the house. Since the temple was hastily dismantled, he felt the air in the garden was heavy. The wind was not blowing as strong as usual. The surrounding trees were silent. Not a single bird chirped or leaf rustled. It felt like something was watching them from the darkness. Master Hoai stood in front of the land, his hands clasped in front of his chest, and began to mumble the prayer. His voice was deep and steady, echoing throughout the garden, sounding both majestic and mysterious. After praying for a long time, the monk stopped, burned the petition, and told Tan Juan, "The ceremony is over. Remember, in the next 3 days, avoid digging too deep into the ground too soon. Let the ground settle, the atmosphere calm down, and then start building the house. This land has a very heavy negative energy, my child." Tan Juan was a little startled. "Yes, what you mean is there a ghost in this place?" Master Hoai nodded slightly, his eyes showing a hint of worry. Tan Juan swallowed his saliva, nodded yes, his heart heavy. That night, after everything had calmed down, the whole family finished dinner early. Mrs. Lone was still upset and scared about the strange death of the black dog and kept nagging. What I said was not wrong. Raising a dog without a chain is harmful to people. But I tell you, maybe the dog saw something unclean, and that's why it got like that. Last night, I heard a very loud barking, as if it was fighting with someone. Was the death of the black dog the final warning, or just the beginning of a series of bigger disasters about to befall Tan Juan's family? That voice did not seem to come from a human mouth, but echoed straight into Mrs. Lone's mind, cold, hissing each word like the wind whistling through the bamboo grove at night, carrying with it extreme resentment. Her throat choked. She wanted to scream, but her mouth could not open. Her feet felt like they were nailed to the cold ground. Suddenly, the black dog rushed back from the empty space. It stood in front of Mrs. Lone, growling, its fur standing on end, its bright eyes staring straight into nothingness. It growled as if it was confronting something she could not see clearly, a brave protection. The black shadow paused for a moment, then disappeared into nothingness as if it had never existed. Only the strong wind blowing through a banana grove behind the house made a creepy rustling sound, like a reminder of the terrifying presence that had just passed. Mrs. Lone collapsed, her hands trembling, clinging to the dog's neck and gasping for breath. A moment later, when her breathing had stabilized somewhat, she stammered, "Muck, you saved me." She staggered to her feet, hugged the dog, and quickly crawled into the house, slammed the door shut, and locked it carefully. Her heart was filled with anxiety, and that feeling became even heavier when she turned around and saw a pair of tiny muddy footprints, imprinted with each step on the brick floor of the porch, from the backyard straight to the front door. But Outside in Ha's bedroom window, those red eyes were still there. They did not disappear in Ha's dream. Even though she was awake, and I still saw them flickering behind the misty glass, like a pair of demonic headlights. And Ha's hand tightly gripped Tan Juan's shirt, her mouth stammering. "On Juan, out there's someone, not a person." Tan Juan frowned, turned back to look at the window, but saw only a dark color. He pulled the blanket over his wife, trying to reassure her. "You must have had a nightmare. I'll check it out tomorrow morning." Will Tan Juan find the truth behind these strange phenomena, or will he and his family have to face a force beyond their understanding? "Time to rest, it's late," Tan Juan whispered, his voice still tinged with worry. And Ha didn't dare say anything more, just lay close to him, eyes still looking out the window until her eyelids grew heavy, falling into a fitful sleep. Outside, the wind was still blowing, carried with a pungent smell like burnt flesh, a scent that didn't belong to this world. Under the eave of the house, the squid was still growling continuously, its feet scratching the cement floor, creating a strange screeching sound, as if warning of an invisible danger. The night signal. The next morning, Mr. Fuchs' family woke up earlier than usual to prepare to bring offerings to the temple to pray for a good day. Since the temple was built, everyone had a cold feeling behind their backs every time they passed by it, an indescribable feeling of unease, but no one dared to say it out loud, afraid of bad luck. Mrs. Lone woke up with a tired, exhausted face, her eyes sunken as if she had been awake all night long. As soon as she saw Ha, she asked immediately, her voice full of worry, "Did you hear anything strange last night?" And Ha hesitated, intending to recount the strange dream and the mysterious hand scratching at the door, but then stopped. She looked out into the yard, where there were dog footprints and a few small, patchy mud stains, looking like a child's footprints, tiny and strange, imprinted on the wet brick floor. "No, Mom. I must have been tired these past few days and haven't slept well." She tried to reassure her mother and herself. Mrs. Lone nodded, but a bad feeling arose in her heart, an uneasiness that could not be dispelled. She secretly took out from her pocket an old, yellowed amulet, then quietly stuck on the back door of the house, which led to the garden, hoping it would ward off evil spirits. The horrifying truth. In the land behind the house, where the small shrine was located, Tan Juan and Mr. Fuchs were preparing incense, flowers, and fruits for the offering. But when they arrived where both of them stopped, their eyes wide open in horror, the wooden coffin lid under the temple pedestal, where people poured cement to fix the coffin, was blown off, thrown to one side. The soil underneath was dug up and ruined, as if someone had tried to dig something out since last night, frantically. In the middle of the festering ground was an old, scorched shirt covered in dried blood and a clump of long hair stuck to the dirt, looking extremely horrifying. The strong smell of blood and decay rose up, causing Mr. Fuchs to cover his nose with his hand, trying to suppress the nausea. Tan Juan took a step back, his face pale, his eyes wide open. What is this, Dad? Who dares to dig this place up?" No one answered. Only the early morning wind blew by, making the wind chime hanging in front of the temple ring. The sound was strangely chilling, like someone's wailing. The moon outside the porch was now hidden by dark clouds. The whole house was plunged into silent darkness. Only the sound of the wind blowing through the erica trees behind the house creaked like a person's groaning, lamenting. That night, no one in the house slept well. The black dog sometimes howled long, terrifying sounds, sometimes growled as if it was sniffing out something terrible. Occasionally, it would even dart out to the back garden, where there was a small temple hidden in the bamboo grove, barking into the darkness. Around the fourth watch, when everything was half asleep, half awake, a clattering sound suddenly came from the kitchen. It sounded like someone was rummaging through pots and pans, trying to find something. Then came the sound of water flowing under the bridge in the pond behind the house, resounding unusually, drop by drop, steady and chilling, like the tears of suffering soul. The next morning, Mrs. Lone woke up to see the squid lying on the porch panting. Its eyes were bloodshot, its two front legs were scratched and bleeding, as if it just fought with something invisible but extremely fierce, protecting its owner from imminent danger. Were these terrifying signs of revenge of the ghosts in the temple, or was there some dark force manipulating everything? Where have you been all night? Mrs. Lowe mumbled and bent down to pet the squid. But the squid did not wag its tail happily like usual, but only folded its ears, whimpered miserably. Its red eyes looked straight out to the back garden with extreme fear, as if it had just escaped something terrifying. Mrs. Lowe began to feel extremely uneasy. Just as she went downstairs to boil water, she stopped. The kitchen door was ajar. On the wooden table there was a handprint in black ash, clearly as if someone had just touched it with a scorched hand. Hauntingly creepy. Hearing Mrs. Lowe scream, Mr. Fook and Tong Wan quickly stood up and ran to the back garden. And Ha also hurriedly walked out, her hand still holding her wobbly pregnant belly, her face pale with worry. Under the erica tree behind the temple, the squid dog lay curled up. Its eyes were wide open as if it had encountered something terrible. Its tongue was hanging out. Its teeth were stuck deep into its own. Its lower lip seemed to be biting tightly in extreme fear. But what haunted everyone the most were the cuts on the animal's body, long, deep, and streaked with dried blood, as if human fingernails had torn the flesh into pieces, exposing the bones. Tan Wan knelt down, his hands trembling as he touched the body of the beloved dog that had been with the family for so many years. Impossible! Last night it was guarding the door. Why now? His voice choked. Tears began to flow. Mrs. Lowe covered her mouth and sobbed. The black dog had lived with this house for nearly 10 years, was wise and loyal, and at night it even lay outside on the porch to watch over Ha while she slept. And now it had died horribly, its body deformed. Immediately after, a strange wind blew in, a foul stench like burnt flesh, mixed with the musty smell of the soil. Under the base of the temple, the soil showed signs of being turned upside down, as if someone just dug something up in the middle of the night, madly and violently. Mr. Fook looked at the scratched ground, speechless. He turned around and spoke softly, his voice trembling, full of confusion. That place is where the ashes of the child who was burned in the fire that year were buried. The child was trapped in the temple during the fire. No one could save him. That sentence was like a lightning bolt that struck everyone's hearts, making everyone tremble. Tan Wan looked at him in astonishment. What you mean is someone dug it up? No one answered. Only Mrs. Lowe's eyes began to well up with tears. Her trembling hand pointed toward the base of the temple. I saw footprints, human footprints, but bare feet covered in blood. The master's warning. In addition to prepared offerings, Tan Wan also carefully placed a petition asking for permission from the local god to demolish the old temple and build a new foundation. Master Huai, who had changed the name of Master Hung in the previous part, carefully checked everything again, then told Tan Wan, I'm going to the fire is on, the incense is ready. When the monk finishes praying, burn the petition immediately, don't hesitate. Tan Wan did as he was told, burning the incense while looking around the land behind the house. Since the temple was hastily dismantled, he felt the air in the garden was heavy. The wind was not blowing as strong as usual. The surrounding trees were silent. Not a single bird chirped or leaf rustled. It felt like something was watching them from the darkness. Master Huai stood in front of the land, his hands clasped in front of his chest, and began to mumble the prayer. His voice was deep and steady, echoing throughout the garden, sounding both majestic and mysterious. After praying for a long time, the monk stopped, burned the petition, and told Tan Wan, the ceremony is over. Remember, in the next 3 days, avoid digging too deep into ground too soon. Let the ground settle, the atmosphere calm down, and then start building the house. This land has a very heavy negative energy, my child. Tan Wan was a little startled. Yes, what you mean is there a ghost in this place? Master Huai nodded slightly, his eyes showing a hint of worry. Tan Wan swallowed his saliva, nodded yes, his heart heavy. That night, after everything had calmed down, the whole family finished dinner early. Mrs. Lowe was still upset and scared about the strange death of the black dog and kept nagging. What I said was not wrong. Raising a dog without a chain is harmful to people. But I tell you, maybe the dog saw something unclean, and that's why I got like that. Last night, I heard a very loud barking, as if it was fighting with someone. Was the death of the black dog the final warning, or just the beginning of a series of bigger disasters about to befall Tan Juan's family? Stop talking nonsense. Nothing happened to our family. Tan Juan and then Ha should go to bed early. Tomorrow, we still have to worry about building a foundation to meet the schedule. Mr. Fook tried to calm down, although his heart was also heavy with bad premonitions. Night fell. The house was immersed in a terrifying silence. Outside, the wind blew fiercely, each wave whistling like someone's mournful cry, echoing throughout the space. Tan Juan tossed and turned, unable to sleep, while Ha had fallen asleep early from exhaustion after days of fatigue and anxiety. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound coming from the backyard, a very soft rustling sound, as if something was moving on dry leaves, then the sound of bare feet lightly stomping on the ground. Tan Juan jumped up, gently walked to the window to look. The backyard was now just a bare ground, where the old temple used to stand. But he saw clearly a newly dug-up patch of dirt, as if someone was digging frantically in the dark. And standing right at the edge of that patch of dirt was the figure of a woman in a silver-white shirt color, long hair hanging down covering her entire face, her back turned to him. Her figure was vague in the darkness, as if woven from smoke and mist. Tan Juan shivered. A cold chill ran down his spine. Before he could scream out loud, that figure suddenly turned her head, strangely without turning her body, as if her head was separated from her body. Her eyes were red as burning embers. Her face was pale and slimy with mud, and most horrifyingly, her mouth opened into a long smile that reached her ears, revealing her black teeth that looked like they had been burned. A silent smile, but containing extreme madness and resentment. Tan Juan fell backwards, his head hitting the wooden door frame. Falling unconscious to the floor, a dry bang sound echoed in the middle of the night, haunting in dreams and reality. Uneasiness crept into every corner of the house, as if something was lurking behind back, making everyone's skin crawl. It was already dark. The yellow light in the house had just been turned on, casting a long shadow on the porch. Mrs. Lone was cleaning the dinner tray, mumbling, her voice full of anxiety. Well, let's build a new house. Hopefully once it's built, everything will be more peaceful. But these past few days, my stomach has been churning. I've been having strange dreams at night, as if someone is whispering in my ear. Mr. Fook heard his wife say that, also nodded, his face heavy. Me too. Ever since the old temple behind the house was demolished, I've had nightmares every night. It's like someone is standing outside the window peeping in. Sometimes I even see a shadow of a person passing through the yard. Hearing that, and Ha, Tan Juan's wife, was carrying the leftover dinner tray to the kitchen, also interjected, her voice soft but full of fear. I've had an even stranger experience. Yesterday, when I was washing dishes in the kitchen, I clearly heard someone calling my name. Call softly, whisper in the ear like a cold wind blowing through the ear. I thought my mother was calling, but when I turned around, no one was there. It still haunts me. The whole house suddenly fell silent. The air in the room became unusually cold, even though the fan had been turned off for a long time. Tan Juan frowned slightly. He didn't believe in ghosts, but recently, everything had been strange and difficult to understand, defying all reason, especially since digging the foundation. Some workers said that while they were digging the ground, they suddenly heard someone giggling, as light as the wind blowing past their necks, but cold enough to penetrate their bones. One worker even insisted that he saw an old, rotten piece of red cloth sticking out from the ground, covered in mud and dried blood. But before he could look closely, the wind blew it away, as if someone had deliberately hidden it with an invisible hand. That night, everyone went to bed early, trying to find a peaceful sleep, but to no avail. The house was silent, except for the chirping of insects in the garden, creating a monotonous symphony of the night. By midnight, and Ha woke up in the middle of her sleep. She was drenched in cold sweat, her heart pounding as if it wanted to jump out of her chest. In her dream, she saw herself standing in the middle of the backyard where the temple used to be. In front of her was a woman in a black AO dye covered in mud, her messy hair hanging down to her waist, and even more horrifying, her feet did not touch the ground, floating in midair. She had no face, just a dark void, deep as a bottomless pit, where light was completely swallowed. She slowly reached out to Nha, her hand as thin as a dried fish bone, her long, sharp nails scratching at the air. Her mouth emitted a choked voice, as if choking on water, each word filled with resentment and anger. "Give back this land of mine." Nha screamed, waking up from her terrifying dream. Sweat soaked her back. She looked around. Tan Juan was still lying motionless beside her, unaware of anything about his wife's terrible nightmare. Outside, a cold wind blew through, carrying a foul stench like blood mixed with mud, lingering somewhere so close it was terrifying. Was this nightmare a final warning? Or was it just the beginning of a more horrifying truth that was about to be revealed, dragging Tan Juan's entire family into a vortex of demonic possession? Nha clenched her hands, trembling as she stepped out onto the balcony to look down at the backyard. And once again, the figure of that long-haired woman appeared, hovering right next to the newly poured cement floor. She stood motionless, her face still completely covered in darkness, but her two eye sockets flowed out two streams of ink-black liquid, forming long, terrifying streaks on her invisible face. The red eyes, as bright as hellfire, still stared into the house, piercing through the night. That charred figure did not move, just stood still like a living statue, her two arms stretched out and hanging limply, streaks of dark blood from her wrists dripping onto a window frame, creating a cold, dripping sound mixed with the sound of the night rain. Mrs. Lone panicked and crawled back, her back hitting the wooden chair hard. She jumped up and ran straight into the room, slammed the door shut, and with trembling hands groped for the light switch. But the light did not come on. The room was dark, except for the occasional flash of lightning outside. Each time the light flashed, the image of that charred shadow was clearly imprinted on the window frame. Clear, creepy like a warning from the dead. In that pitch-black night, Mrs. Lone pressed her face against the wall, muttering Buddhist chants, trying to dispel the terror. But as soon as she finished muttering, she heard a shrill laugh echoing behind her, shrill and haunting, just like in Ha's dream earlier. The next morning, when the rain had just stopped, Tan Juan woke up early to prepare to continue construction work. As soon as he stepped out into the yard, he saw Mrs. Lone's face pale, her eyes dark from not sleeping all night. She sat right on the steps, still tightly holding the worn-out Bodhi rosary. "What's wrong, Mom? Are you tired?" Tan Juan asked, his voice full of worry. Mrs. Lone shook her head repeatedly, trembling. "Last night, I saw him standing outside the window. His eyes were red like hot coals. His body was burned black. Blood dripped drop by drop, right on the windowsill of our house." Tan Juan frowned. His mother had never been a superstitious or paranoid person, but since the groundbreaking ceremony, strange things kept happening. "What about my wife and children? Is Ha okay?" Mrs. Lone asked, her eyes filled with concern and fear. Tan Juan turned back into the room, saw Ha still lying there, her face tired and pale. He shook her gently. "Are you awake yet?" And Ha was startled, opened her eyes and looked at him, her face full of fear. There was laughter next to my ear. Then someone stood next to my bed. I don't remember the face clearly, but the eyes were red, like a demon's eyes. Tan Juan was silent. His heart sank. That same night, his mother saw a ghost outside the window. His wife had a nightmare about a red-eyed man. The ducks in the coop had been screaming incessantly the night before, as if they were being attacked by something. Something was very wrong. He felt a cold, dangerous aura enveloping his family. Tan Juan stood up and walked out into the yard. On the fence behind the house, each fingernail mark looked like it had been scratched for a long time, oozing dry blood. He shivered, remembering what Master Hoai had said the day before. "This land has something wrong. It's not peaceful, my child." At this moment behind the house, the sound of dogs barking rang out, fierce and mournful. Con Muck, the dog that died the day before, lying miserable under the erica tree, was standing in front of the door, its whole body covered in disgusting sores, but its eyes were unusually bright, staring at Tan Juan like a warning from the dead. The dog is dead. Tong Wan took a step back, his heart pounding, his reason starting to waver. Inside the house, and Ha was mumbling something in her sleep, her eyes closed but her forehead was covered in sweat, as if she was struggling with an invisible force. What was waiting for them ahead? Was it the ghost that had returned, or was it something more terrifying, beyond their imagination? That laughter rang out repeatedly, clear in the silence after the rain. Each beat echoed as if someone was screaming right next to their ears, causing the hens in the coop to suddenly fly around, flapping their wings and screaming loudly in the middle of the night. The window was slammed by the wind once more, with a loud bang, almost coming off its hinges. Mr. Fook had just laid Mrs. Lone down when he was startled, turning his head to look towards the direction of the noise. He turned on the flashlight, stepped outside again, this time more carefully, each step groping in the dark. The light just when he reached the window. He stopped. Right outside the window bars was a black handprint, 5 fingers tightly gripping the glass, as if someone had been burned but still tried to cling on. Flesh peeled off, blood and pus mixed with rainwater, dripping into streaks under the window frame. The stench was nauseating. Mr. Fook was stunned. A chill ran down his spine. He stepped back, trembling and muttering, Really, there's a ghost? Before he could do anything, a dark figure suddenly flashed past, rushing straight toward him. Mr. Fook screamed, hurriedly ran into the room, hugging Mrs. Lone, who was still in shock. The old couple sat leaning against each other, shivering in the dark, waiting for the light of day. The next morning, the whole family felt like they were being crushed by a heavy shadow, and Ha woke up feeling exhausted, and her eyes were dazed. Tong Wan went to yard to check and saw a large burn mark the size of a hand on the window, black ash flying all over the brick steps, and on the wall were long streaks, as if someone had used their fingernails to scratch hard, deeply engraved into the mortar. Was this the revenge of a haunted ghost, or was there some other dark force manipulating everything? What was happening was beyond any normal explanation. Tong Wan looked at Mrs. Lone, who was sitting huddled in the corner of the house, her face pale with fear. As soon as she saw him, she immediately pulled his hand back, her voice trembling miserably. You call Teacher Hawaii down immediately. I beg you, don't wait any longer. He's back. He's demanding your life. Before Tong Wan could reply, from Ha's room, there was a sound of objects falling, deafening. The whole family rushed in and saw Ha rolling around on the bed, holding his head, muttering horrifying words. He was standing there, right at the head of the bed. His eyes were red. He said, Give him back. Give him back his life. And Ha's voice was no longer her own, but hoarse, horrified as if coming from the throat of someone being burned alive, full of pain and resentment, omens from the construction site. Yes, I don't know either. He was standing right on the roof. Suddenly stopped, then fell as if someone was pulling him down. A construction worker reported, his face pale. Yeah, I saw it too. Another worker added. He was carrying a bucket of mortar, suddenly turned his head back as if someone called his name, then missed his step. He fell straight down without any time to react. Hearing this, Mr. Fook paused, his eyes staring at the unfinished roof. Where the worker had just fallen, there was a piece of corrugated iron that was deeply dented, right next to the crossbeam. Suddenly, Mr. Fook's mind flashed with the moonlight from last night, where the black shadow was still standing watching the two of them disappear into the bedroom. Then there was a sound of a cat meowing in the middle of the night, like an ominous sign. Mr. Fook swallowed his saliva, not daring say anything more. An invisible fear enveloped him. That afternoon, it suddenly started to rain heavily, even though the morning was still bright and sunny. A cold wind blew through the house under construction, giving the workers goosebumps for no apparent reason. They felt something unusual was surrounding them. Hey, did you see under the foundation? The section near the corner of the backyard. This morning I saw some black ash, like someone burned something down there. A worker whispered to the person next to him. Yeah, I saw it too, but no one lit a fire. But, do you smell the burning smell? It's like something is burning. It's creepy. The two looked at each other. No one dared to say more, but their eyes showed unease and fear. The night comes back. That night, Tong Wan came home late. The rain had not stopped yet. The sky was rumbling with thunder and lightning. He went into the warehouse to get a raincoat when he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. He turned around. There was no one, only thick darkness. Suddenly, a shrill laugh rang out from the corner of the backyard, right where they were pouring the foundation, where the old temple used to stand. Tan Juan panicked and turned on the flashlight, shining in that direction. Under the flickering light, a charred figure was standing hunched over, long hair covering his face, smoke rising through his entire body. A strong burning smell rushed into his nose. Tan Juan screamed, dropped the flashlight, rushed into the house, and slammed the door shut. Anha saw her husband panicking and ran out to help him, but at that moment she suddenly held her stomach, her face pale, her mouth muttering meaningless words. It's here. It wants to take me away. It wants revenge. At that moment, the house suddenly started to flicker and turn off continuously. The fluorescent lights flickered, as if someone was fiddling with the switch crazily, pushing everything into chaos. Mr. Fook ran out of the room, and when he saw the panic in both of their eyes, he exclaimed, "It's not good. Teacher Hoai, we have to invite Teacher Hoai down immediately. People's lives are being claimed. The wronged soul has returned." The strange laughter from that night kept echoing in his head. Not once, but many nights in a row, he had the same dream. The only difference was that every time he approached the temple, the white shadow stood closer, clearer, its eyes red as burning coals staring at him, as if wanting to warn him of something, as if wanting to ask for help or threaten him. Mr. Fook shuddered, feeling a terrible omen approaching. Could Master Hoai save the situation, or would Tan Juan's family have to pay a heavy price for destroying the ancient temple? "So, do you want to eat or drink anything? Or should I cook porridge for you?" Tan Juan asked, his voice full of concern, trying to dispel the gloomy atmosphere. Anha smiled faintly, shaking her head slightly. "No need, brother. I just want to lie down and rest for a bit. But you—" Anha paused for a moment, her voice lowered to a whisper, filled with fear. "Yesterday I dreamed of a woman in white standing in the corner of this room. She stood there for a long time, not saying anything, but when I looked into her eyes, I saw something very strange, like resentment, like she was waiting for something." Tan Juan frowned, tried to find a reasonable explanation. "It's just a dream. There's nothing to be afraid of. You must be worried about the house. So your nerves are a bit tense. I've been working on the house these past few days, and a lot of things have happened. Let me take a few days off, stay home with you, and take care of everything." Anha gently held her husband's hand. "Don't quit your job because of me. I'm fine. It's just you. If I see anything strange tomorrow or something happens, don't blame me." Anha smiled softly, but that smile was like the wind blowing through paper flowers, fragile, trembling, and quiet, hiding a sadness. Then she turned inside, closing her eyes as if she wanted to avoid her husband's anxious gaze, or avoid something that was lurking. That night, the moon rose late. The light was as pale as mist, adding to the ghostly look of the room. In the dark room, Tan Juan kept tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Beside him, Aha occasionally groaned softly, as if she was delirious in a dream, her voice filled with pain. At midnight, he suddenly woke up when he heard a soft screech like a strangled cry coming from the end of the bed, near Anha's head. He jumped up, turned on the light. The weak yellow light dispelled some of the darkness, but could not dispel the horror. Anha was still lying with her face to the wall, but in the corner of the room, the place she had mentioned, something was moving slightly. A white figure. A long head of hair fell down, disheveled as if soaked in rain, messy and disgusting. That figure stood motionless, face unclear, only turned back. Tan Juan swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He turned to look at Anha, and when he saw her, he suddenly felt weak. 2 lines of tears were running down her face, even though her eyes were still closed and her mouth, who knew when, was whispering each word, monotonous and cold, without any emotion. It hasn't gone anywhere." Under the dim light, from under the bed, a soft clacking sound rang out, as if someone's fingernails had just lightly dug into the wooden floor, searching for a way out. The loud crash tore through the night. The wheel continued to spin for a while before falling sideways onto the wet grass, the headlights shattered. There weren't many people on the road. Only a few flickering lights from afar reflected back, illuminating the scene that made everyone's hair stand on end. Tan Juan lay motionless, face down on the ground, blood flowing from his forehead spreading a long trail, mixing with the dirt and rocks. The front of the motorbike was crushed, no longer recognizable as its original shape. The truck driver panicked and rushed down, stammering for help, but before he could touch Tan Juan's body, he suddenly stepped back, because at that moment, he saw a dark figure standing a few meters away, right on the side of the road, looking straight at the accident. The figure's face was unclear, only wrinkled, scorched skin and long fingers as if waiting to cling to something. The wind blew, making the hair on the back of the man's neck stand on end. The figure slowly tilted its head to look at Tan Juan, then grinned as if it had just achieved something satisfying, a disgusting gloating. At home, the clock was almost midnight, and Ha still hadn't slept. She stood at the bedroom window, her eyes looking far away at the dark village road outside. Her face no longer had the same worried look as before, but was coldly still, like an emotionless statue. A faint smile appeared on her lips, the same smile as when she leaned her head on Tan Juan's chest that afternoon, but now it carried an indescribable horror. A soft click sounded. The bedroom door suddenly opened gently even though there was no wind, as if an invisible hand was opening the way. And Ha did not turn around. She whispered, as if talking to someone standing behind her, her voice steady and cold. "He's gone. You kept your word. Now it's my turn to take revenge." Right after that sentence, from behind her, a char hand reached out, gently placed on her shoulder, a touch that was cold enough to penetrate the bone. The cackling laughter rang out again, this time two voices at the same time, blending together, clear in the quiet space after the rain. Each beat echoed as if someone was screaming right next to her ears, causing the hens in the coop to suddenly fly away in panic, flapping their wings and screaming loudly in the middle of the night. The sound of the late night wind whistled to the Erica row in front of the alley, carrying a cold air that made the wooden door creak in the darkness. On the deserted dirt road, and Ha's figure limped step by step, her thin nightgown clinging to her pale body as if it had been drained of blood. Her mouth kept repeating the vague words in her throat, word by word like a curse. "Destroy my house. Pay 10 times more." She kept walking like that, past the upper hamlet, turning onto a path leading to the abandoned land, the place that used to be the old house of her family, a piece of land that had been abandoned for many years because of rumors of being haunted. The villagers said that, since the time of her ancestor, there had been a fire that killed an entire family. Then it was sealed by a strange shaman. Whoever touched it would bring disaster upon themselves. And Ha walked right to the middle of the ground, where now there were only a few pieces of ruined walls and a bare stone well, the mouth of the well covered with moss. The wind blew in gusts, whistling, swirling through the gaps of her clothes. She stood there, eyes wide open, looking down at the mouth of the well, and then burst out laughing, a creepy, inhuman laugh. What was waiting for an Ha in the ancient well? Was this the revenge of a haunted ghost? Or was there some other dark force manipulating her? "You guys destroyed my house. Now you have to pay 10 times as much." Anha's voice was no longer hers, but turned into a strange, resentful sound, echoing in the dark night. At that moment, from within the ancient well, a black, dry hand like a rotten tree branch slowly reached up, curling each finger as if wanting to pull something up with it. The groans like countless burned, tormented souls echoed in the middle of the night, sounding creepy. And Ha did not show any fear. On the contrary, she knelt down, scratched the dirt and rocks with both hands, and whispered, her voice cold, "Go back. I opened the way. I kept my word. Go back and take everything back. Take back what was lost." A gulp, gulp, gulp sound echoed from the well, as if something giant was rising from the bottom of the abyss. The sound was terrifying and heartbreaking. The tragedy of the deserted well. The next morning, Mr. Fuchs' whole family was in an uproar chaos. Tan Juan woke up and did not see his wife, calling out, but there was no response. Everyone in the village scattered to search, feeling uneasy. It was not until almost noon that Old Man Hoa, the water carrier who passed by the familiar abandoned well, discovered a wet, muddy footprint stretching from the bank into the well, clearly visible. Mr. Hoa screamed when he saw a piece of white nightgown caught on the well wall. At the bottom of the well, a vague figure was sitting huddled, facing the cold well wall, long hair covering most of his face, arms hugging his stomach, mouth still mumbling the familiar, haunting words. "Give me back my house, destroy my house, give 10 times more." And Ha's death was like a knife piercing deep into Mr. Fuchs' family's hearts, tearing apart all hope. Mrs. Lone cried bitterly, unable to believe that her daughter-in-law had just been there, but was now lying motionless, her face pale but drawing a haunting, terrifying smile, as if mocking fate. Tan Wan sitting on the hospital floor, holding her head in both hands, her broken leg still bandaged. She was shaking violently. No one said anything. Only Mrs. Lone sobbing, the sound of the wind blowing through the crack in the door in a mournful voice, and Ha's face, even though she had passed away, still kept a twisted smile that seemed to tease the living cold to the bone. The funeral took place in a heavy atmosphere, full of fear and confusion. The villagers gossiped. Some said Ha was possessed by a ghost. Others said she might have been under a spell or had encountered a sinister dragon vein when digging the foundation to build a house. Mr. Hoai, who rarely showed up to perform a big ceremony, was invited to suppress and review the entire land of Tan Wan's house. He walked around the unfinished house, his eyes narrowed with worry when he stopped in front of the deep foundation pit near the kitchen, where unusual energies were emitted. This place, who let them dig this deep? Down here is a pit of evil spirits. Mr. Hoai said in a deep voice, "Life for life is inevitable when touching this place." Mr. Hoai's words made Mr. Fuchs' whole family numb. Mr. Fuchs asked with a trembling voice, with a faint hope, So my daughter-in-law is dead. Is that it, teacher? Or is there someone else? Is there anything else?" Mr. Hoai quietly took out a bundle of black incense from his pocket, stuck it right there on the ground, and lit it. The smoke billowed up, not dispersing but twisting into a strange circle. Then suddenly there was a loud, shrill laugh, like the sound of metal scraping against rock. A woman's clear voice rang out, hissing each word, full of hatred and resentment. "One life is not enough. You must return everything you have destroyed for me, including your souls and lives." Hearing that, Mr. Hoai turned pale, signaling the whole family to leave that house immediately. He ordered, his voice serious, "This house must be sealed immediately. No one is allowed to enter for 3 months. Otherwise, disasters will continue to strike." The haunting laughter. That night, when the house was carefully fenced, no one dared enter the unfinished house. Tan Wan heard laughter ringing in his ears, even though at that time he was the only one in the house lying in one place with a broken leg. The laughter was exactly the same as the day of the accident, hoarse, shrill, hissing through clenched teeth, coming from the window where the moonlight shone in. That laughter seemed to be clinging to him, an inescapable curse. Then a familiar voice came from the head of the bed, gentle but full of ghosts. "Honey, let's not build anymore. It hurts so much. It hurts so much. Please." Tan Wan turned around, and Ha was sitting right at the head of the bed, her hands holding her stomach, her face pale and cracked like a wax statue, still the haunting, deathly smile from the moor that day. Her eyes were soulless, just 2 deep black holes looking straight at him. Can Tan Wan escape and Ha's haunting and vengeful spirit, or will he have to face his predetermined cruel fate? Destroy my house. I will follow for life. Don't even think about escaping. And Ha's ghostly voice hissed, carrying extreme hatred, echoing throughout the cold room. Tan Wan only had time to scream a desperate "no," then his whole body convulsed and fell down, eyes wide open, mouth foaming, body convulsing violently. He passed out, sinking into his own nightmare. Finding the sorrow-resolving master. The tea shop was just a small hut covered with an old corrugated iron roof, under the shade of an old tamarind tree by the roadside. The middle-aged woman sat behind the worn-out wooden table, her hands still wiping her glasses, looking over at the 2 customers as she spoke, her voice curious. "Mr. Tam, early this morning, I saw someone come to pick you up, bringing a lot of stuff, including a few gold talismans wrapped in red cloth. I heard vaguely that they were talking, as if there was something sinister, and they had to leave immediately. He must have gone to a place to pray. Tong Wan frowned slightly when he heard that, feeling anxious. So, did you hear where they said they were going? My family has an urgent matter, and we need him to come down and help us. The woman shook her head. I don't know where. I just heard them say they had to go down to the river area below, probably somewhere in Haozhong or SOC Trang. He usually goes without saying anything. But the strange thing is that this time he went. His face looked very tense, completely different from the previous times, as if there was some kind of omen. Hearing that, Tan Wan could only turn to Min, Hai's name in the previous paragraphs, and sigh. That's it. I guess I'll have to wait until he comes back and then decide what to do next. I don't know when I'll be able to see you again. That night, when the whole family had finished eating in a heavy atmosphere, and Ha went crazy again, even more violent than the day before. She screamed and banged her head against the wall. Her laughter echoed throughout the house like the voice of a lost soul, terrifying to the bone. Mrs. Lone had to hug her chest and sit down on the ground, her face pale, her mouth mumbling prayers in despair. Oh my God, what a terrible fate. Why did my family get caught up in such a terrible karma? My child. Mr. Fook lit an incense stick in the middle of the house, clasped his hands and prayed, his voice pleading. If there is any ghost residing here, please appear. Please let me know your wish. My family did not intentionally commit a crime. I only pray that my daughter-in-law and grandchild be spared. We will do everything to make amends. But instead of quieting down, Anha's room suddenly fell silent. A terrifying silence enveloped Boss. Anh, are you okay? Tong Wan called softly, his heart filled with worry. There was no answer. He peeked through the crack of the door, and at that moment he froze, his whole body stiff. Anha's eyes were wide open, red as blood, and her mouth was still smiling in a ghostly way, black blood dripping from her nose onto the floor, forming dark pools. Mus, dig it up. Give it back to me. Give me back my head. A deep, hoarse voice echoed from Ha's mouth, but it was not her voice. It was the voice of a person who had died unjustly, full of resentment. Tong Wan panicked and stepped back, his limbs limp, without any strength left. Mr. Fook saw that, and immediately rushed forward to pull him away, then shouted loudly, No more dialogue. It's trying to lure it out to take over the body again. Don't listen to him. At that moment, from inside, the door shook violently, as if dozens of invisible arms were pounding on it, wanting to break everything. Tong Wan turned pale and turned to Mr. Fook. Dad, what did he say? Head? Hide head. What do you mean? Mr. Fook's face suddenly changed color. His eyes looked far away for a moment. Then he slowly said, his voice trembling, Maybe, it's the piece of land in the backyard, the place where my grandfather said before that you absolutely must not dig a foundation to build anything. Back then, someone was beheaded and died unjustly, and their incomplete body was hidden there. Tong Wan was stunned. The piece of land where we built the firewood storage? Mr. Fook nodded heavily, full of regret. Tomorrow, we must dig it up and see. If that's true, the only way is to pay them back enough. Then maybe our family can escape this fatal disaster. This is the price to pay for touching taboos. Hello, teacher, is anyone home? We would like to ask you to come in and help us with something. Tong Wan called out from the gate, his voice full of pleading. A moment later, from inside the house came the sound of slippers. Then the old wooden door opened slightly. A man in his 60s with white hair, a thin figure but bright eyes, full of wisdom, stepped out. He was wearing a dark brown AOBABA, holding a worn-out bamboo fan. That person looked at Tong Wan and Min for a while before asking softly, What do you want from me? Hello, your name is Teacher Long, change name for Teacher Man, right? I heard someone came here to ask you for help. The thing is, Tong Wan's house has recently been possessed by a spirit. The family members have gone crazy. The house is in ruins. We have also searched many places, but no one can help. The old man did not, and opened the door to invite him inside. The house was simple but clean. In the middle of the house was a small ancestral altar with incense smoke still smoldering, giving off a gentle scent of incense. The old man poured tea, then told the two to sit down. Looking at Mr. Long's face, Tan Juan suddenly had a strange feeling, as if his eyes were piercing his heart. No secret could be hidden. The story in Mr. Tan Juan's house smells of blood. There's a very heavy resentment. Mr. Long said softly. His hand pulled out a small string of black beads from his pocket. He fingered them and chanted something in his mouth, as if communicating with another world. Yes, teacher. After my daughter-in-law had miscarriage, she started to go crazy. Every night she screamed, then banged her head against the wall. She could no longer speak like a human. Sometimes she was awake, sometimes she was unconscious, and her eyes were no longer hers, teacher. Tan Juan recounted, his voice full of pain. This is not just a matter of a fetus spirit possessing us. There is something else, something that was once sealed and is now rising up. Master Long said, his eyes filled with seriousness. Tan Juan's voice trembled. Yes, actually there's a foundation dug behind the house. Before that, it was the old foundation of our grandparents' house. I heard it was wasteland. Master Long frowned, his expression becoming more and more tense. Then it's dangerous. This is not just a normal vengeful spirit. It could be a haunted grave. This type of grave, when disturbed, will produce extremely strong demonic energy, sucking the life force of the living, and if left for a long time, it will claim a life, not just one life. Will Tan Juan's family be able to find the hidden head and dispel the curse from the haunted grave, or will they continue to face mysterious deaths? Strange things follow one after another, beyond all normal explanations. Tan Juan looked at Mrs. Lone, who was crouching in the corner of the house, her face as pale as a sheet of paper. As soon as she saw him, she immediately grabbed his hand, her voice trembling miserably. You quickly call Teacher Why down now. I beg you, don't hesitate any longer. He's back. He's demanding your life. Before Tan Juan could reply, the sound of broken furniture rang out from Anha's room, deafening. The whole family rushed in, and what they saw was Anha writhing on the bed, holding her head, her mouth constantly muttering. He's standing there, right at the head of the bed. His eyes were red. He said, "Give him back. Give him his life." Anha's voice at this moment was no longer hers, but became hoarse and terrifying, as if coming from the throat of someone being burned alive, full of pain and indignation. Ghost on the roof. Yes, I'm not sure either. He was standing right on the roof, suddenly stopped, then fell down as if someone invisible was pulling him. A construction worker recounted, his face pale with fear. That's right. I saw it too. Another worker echoed. He was carrying a bucket of mortar, suddenly turned his head back as if someone called him, then lost his balance, fell straight to ground without any time to react. Hearing this, Mr. Fook suddenly stopped, his eyes glued to the roof. Where the worker had just fallen, there was a piece of corrugated iron that was terribly dented, right next to the crossbeam. Suddenly, in his mind flashed the image of the moonlight last night, where the black shadow was still standing motionless, watching him and his wife sneak into the bedroom. Then there was the creepy meowing of a cat in the middle of the night, like an ominous sign. Mr. Fook swallowed, not daring to say another word. An invisible fear enveloped him. That afternoon, it suddenly started to rain heavily, even though the morning was still sunny. A cold wind blew through the house under construction, giving the workers goosebumps for no apparent reason. They felt an indescribable unease enveloping the construction site. Hey, did you see under the foundation? The part near the corner of the backyard. This morning I saw some black ash, like someone was burning something down there. A worker whispered to his friend. Yeah, I saw it too, but no one lit a fire. That's strange. But did you smell a burning smell? It's like something was burning. It's creepy. The two looked at each other. No one dared say anything more, but their eyes showed unease and extreme fear. That night, Tan Juan came home late. The rain had not yet stopped. The sky was rumbling with thunder, lightning flashing continuously, illuminating the strange shadows of the trees. He went into the warehouse to get his raincoat when he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned his head. There was no one, only dense darkness and the sound of the wind. Suddenly, a shrill laugh rang out from the corner of the backyard, right where they were pouring the foundation, where the old temple used to be. Tan Juan panicked and turned on his flashlight, shining it straight in that direction. Under the flickering light, a charred figure was standing crouched, long hair covering his face. His whole body was smoking, giving off a foul, disgusting smell. Tan Juan screamed loudly, dropped his flashlight, then rushed into the house, slammed the door, and locked it. And Ha saw her husband panicking and ran out to help. But at that moment she suddenly held her stomach, her face pale, her mouth mumbling unclear words. It's here. It wants to take me away. It wants revenge. At that moment, the house suddenly turned on and off continuously. The fluorescent lights blinked continuously, as if someone was fiddling with a switch madly, pushing everything into utter chaos. Mr. Fook ran out of the room, and when he saw the panicked eyes of both of them, he exclaimed, his voice full of despair, "This is not good. Teacher Huai, we must invite Teacher Huai down immediately. People's lives are being claimed. The wronged soul has returned to take revenge." In his head, the strange laughter from that night kept echoing. Not once, but for many nights in a row, he had the same dream. The only difference was that every time he approached the temple, the white shadow stood closer, clearer. Its eyes red as burning coals stared at him, as if it wanted to tell him something, as if it wanted to ask for help or threaten him. Mr. Fook shivered, feeling a terrible omen was approaching, an inevitable disaster. Will Tan Juan's family be able to find help from Master Hawaii in time, or will they have to face the cruel fate decided by that resentful spirit? The exorcism ceremony lasted until midnight. Under the skillful and thoughtful guidance of Master Long, each heavy negative energy gradually dissipated, giving way to an unusually quiet atmosphere. The demon trapped under the black stone in the ancient temple was actually the spirit of a woman who had died unjustly many years ago. She was unjustly buried alive right on this land, and the resentment accumulated over the years turned into an evil spirit. The villagers at that time did not understand the situation clearly, only knowing that her spirit often appeared to cause trouble. So they built a temple to exorcise her, unintentionally trapping that spirit in deep resentment, unable to escape. Now, after being subdued by Master Long with compassion and ancient rituals, that spirit has followed him to cultivate, repay the karma it had created, seeking peace after many years of suffering. A few months later, the gloomy temple was completely dismantled, giving way to a fresh space. Tan Juan's family's new house continued to be built as usual, without any incidents or strange signs. And Ha also gradually recovered from the terrible mental shock. Although the pain of losing her child and the recent hauntings will still linger in her heart for a long time, time and a return of peace will gradually soothe all the wounds, helping her find herself again. Mr. Fook's family returned to their daily lives, without the darkness or the extreme fear like the previous terrifying days. They understood that this peace was a price of understanding and compassion. As for Master Long, he still quietly continued on the path of saving humanity, carrying with him the lost souls, resolving the injustices that no one had ever understood. Through this story, we see that ignorance and blind superstition sometimes not only do not help, but also make things worse, trapping both the living and the dead in a vicious cycle of resentment. But thanks to the timely appearance of a virtuous person like Master Long, who dares to face mysterious things with wisdom and compassion, the grievances are resolved, the soul is liberated, and people can continue to live a peaceful life. This is a testament to the power of true faith and kindness. If you find this story has brought you scary but thoughtful moments about the spiritual world and the hidden lessons, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel to support us, and share this video so that more people can know. Hello, and see you again in the next stories.